Lounge. Here's what we do at the lounge. We take an hour and we have a real conversation with real life people who I think are real life superheroes, real life people that are transforming their lives to what they were meant to be. That's what we're known for here at Life Change. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So as we're here and streaming, I want people to send in their questions. I'm going to be checking on my phone to make sure that we are getting questions and hearing everything that we need to. And I will answer questions as they come in, but bring questions to Erica and to me. And if you want to have questions now or later, send them. You can send the questions to lifechangeinstitute@gmail.com or all our socials. You can private message through all of those. But let's go ahead and kick off this conversation because I think that we have a lot to talk about. I have the honor of being able to talk to my friend Erica. And Erica, let me tell you, this almost didn't happen because you're a Cowboys fan. Yeah, that I have to say off the jump. Like, I really wrestled with the loud. Yeah, we're gonna start there. Like, I really wrestled with having a Cowboys fan on this episode. Like, come on, man. And you're so gracious about it because you know you could talk more junk than you really
I could. Dang, that grace and mercy is good though, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't have any of it. If we would have won, I would have told you so. But we have a Cowboys fan on here.
I did. I felt bad.
I feel bad for me. You know, we have redemption here in the house. So Erica is the epitome of kind of what life change looks like. And I think as you hear her story unfold, I think that you will hear a lot of life change. And so I told her months ago, probably like 6 months ago or so, I was like, hey, you're going to be on my podcast. You were like, okay, whatever. You didn't think I was serious, did you?
I didn't think you were serious.
Did you walk away thinking like this guy really thinks he has a podcast? And
No, I believed you had it. I just didn't think I'd be willing.
That's true. That's a good point. So I approached her and I said, hey, you ready to do this? She's like, sure. So I think that you guys are in store for a good conversation with Erica. So Erica, I know from church. I know that she's done a number of different things, that she's been around and then some in terms of work, in terms of life. She was literally just dropping perfect Spanish to me. I walk through the door and she starts talking perfect Spanish to me. I'm like, where did this come from? So I thought that was kind of dope, man. I ain't gonna lie. So please welcome to the lounge, Erica Lane. Send in all your questions as we're unwrapping and this whole sort of conversation. But thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
What do you want people to know about you? Like when you know, like this is like the whole like Jay-Z, allow me to reintroduce myself. Like,
wow. What do I want you to know?
Yeah, like who is Erica Lane right now? Like in this present time.
In this present time, she is someone who is definitely changing, evolving, recognizing her value and her worth to the fullest potential. Somebody that kind of went from not so believing in that to I'm starting to get it now. I wouldn't say I got it, but I'm starting to get it.
I don't know if it's ever an arrival thing of getting it. Yeah. I think that we are constantly getting it.
Keep going.
Yeah. So I think that that's it. The lounge, I told you, only has 2 scripted questions.
I practiced them. I'm ready. Give me the two.
Yo, this is funny. So I always tell everybody that comes on the lounge, I say 2 scripted questions. Your life change moment, which we often know are many. Yeah, how do you choose just one, especially when you've lived a full life? And then to you, what does positive life change mean? And so let's jump into that because I'm curious to see kind of where you take things. In this
Which one are we going to answer first?
Well, the first one definitely is your life change moment. Like, what was the life change moment? And it's funny because I don't even know. I knew you as a person, and I just knew what God has walked with you through. But I wonder which moment you're going to pick. So what was your life change moment that you want to kind of highlight?
Well, like you said, there was lots of them. And so that's something that I did ponder. But I ran into a picture the other day in the at-home store. I'm trying to find something to put on my wall. I do have that BU in my office. But I was trying to find something that described me in a picture. And this one picture keeps jumping out at me. I haven't bought it yet, but it keeps jumping out. And it's just a black and white picture, and it's got this sheep on it, just one little sheep. And I keep coming back to it. And I was like, wow, that really does define me, actually. And so when you asked me to come, I was like, which moment? And that silly sheep keeps coming back. So now I got to go buy the picture.
I want to know how you relate to a sheep.
It's a bad story.
Wow, that was horrible. Oh.
Hey, just get it over with. The disappointment can begin.
That's horrible. God, that was so bad.
I thought I'd get on in before you did.
Yo, you're right. You're right. You get like we should keep a chalkboard here, like a
Right, Tally, I got one. Tally, you got one. No, I would say so. We were doing a project with a group called Serve the City, and we were going. The police had come to us. Have you heard of it, Serve the City? They'd come to us. They'd ask us to go into these low-income neighborhoods and say, how can we make a difference? How can we help? What can we do? And I was one of the project coordinators for it, and I was kind of like at the command post in charge of all of the comings and goings and the 580
How long
projects.
ago were you talking about?
This has been 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So this life moment started then for me. And at the end of the week, all week long, I'd heard this one name, and they just kept saying Brenda. We've been to Brenda's house. We keep trying to get into Brenda's house. Brenda won't let us in her house. Brenda's doing this. We've heard really bad things. We know Brenda's house is bad. And I heard Brenda all week. And I thought, well, I'm going to go see Brenda. And I was like, just because I want to know, like, what are you all talking about?
Yeah, what is up with Brenda?
I need to know.
Yeah.
And as I approached the door, they had gone to her house. All they wanted to do, her grass was as tall as the windows. The backyard was that tall. The house was falling apart. We had heard the inside was like really bad. And so they were like, we got to do something for her. We got to get her help. She would refuse everyone. Every time they went to the door, she wanted nothing to do with them. And so by the end of the week, I'd heard all these stories about how bad this is and how much help she needs, and she won't take the help. Kind of a little bit like me.
You saw a lot of yourself in
kind of a lot like me, actually. Knew I needed help, would never take the help, wouldn't ask for the help. Somebody can relate to that, I'm sure. But anyway, so the end of the week came, and I asked the leader, I said, I just want to go see what we're talking about. And she's like, okay, we can go. And so we went, and I just gonna march up there like I'm gonna be like.
Since you identified with Brenda, you said I'm gonna go ahead and knock on the door.
And I go to the door, and there is a note on the door. It says, I don't care who you are, do not knock on this door.
Wow.
And I backed away from the door, and I went back to my car, and I was like, I don't think she wants us there. I don't think she wants us there. And so got out of the car again, and I was like, I felt that tug, Holy Spirit, just the tug is there. Knock on the door. And I'm like, I don't think I should knock on that door. So here's me. Just gonna say the word. And
everybody's standing back, right?
Like everybody's looking at me like, you're crazy.
We'll see what happens here.
And I'm just gonna describe her as the meanest, largest, nappy-headed black woman I've ever seen in my life. And I'll use that term because I grew up in a school where I was like the only white cheerleader, so I'm comfortable saying that term.
Wow.
But she was scary and big and big.
Wow.
Big. She looks down at me. White girl, can you read? And I was like trying to run back to the car as fast as I could. I was like, I can read.
Wow.
I can read. She goes, you need to go.
Wow.
And I left and I went. That was it. But that moment changed me.
Why?
Because the next week I'm driving through the neighborhood, praying for everybody in the neighborhood, and I see her. I see her at her front porch. And so instead of driving by, I just pull in the driveway like we are going to be friends.
So you were one of those
We are
people.
going to be friends, Brenda. And so I walked in her driveway, and she just gave me this look like she could just pummel me right to the ground. And so I got out of my car, and I was just like, how are you doing? And I did that every single week. I would go by her house. I knew when she would go outside. I was a little stalking. I was.
I'm glad you admitted that.
I admit it. But I got to the point where we'd sit on the porch then. We sit on the stairs. I couldn't come in the house. Nobody was allowed in the house. Yard still looked terrible.
I'll take it.
So finally after weeks, she let me let somebody mow that grass. That was all it was, mowing the grass. When I think of that sheep picture, I'm trying to bring it back to the sheep picture for you a little bit. She was that sheep. I wasn't the sheep. She was that sheep. And when you think about all these people that are out there, you drive past all these houses, and we'll come back to her being a sheep in a second, but it changed me because I got to meet with her every week. She became my best friend, actually. That's awesome. It changed me because while I thought I was helping her, I was really going through a bunch of crap myself. And she ministered to me way more than I could have ministered to anybody, to her, to anybody. And there were times when I would be sitting in her house, and she was raw as you're going to get. She is the most raw person you're going to meet.
She sounds like my type of woman,
She's
honestly. Like
crazy.
she's my kind of people.
So when I say raw, I'll say it because she's passed away since then.
Yeah.
So I can say this because she can't do nothing to me. But there were times, and that's the kind to show you too what kind of person I am. There were times when we finally she let me come in her house.
Yeah.
So there'd be times when I'm sitting in her house, I was only allowed to sit in one chair.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't look to the left, couldn't look to the right. Like I had to like keep my focus right where she was because she didn't want me to see the mess around her life.
Yeah.
Kind of like a lot of us do. And she
Yep.
represented
Yep.
so much of that to me.
Yep.
And it was like a mirror because I knew I was doing the same thing, but I was doing it in different ways.
Yep.
And so my life change happened in the minute I knocked on that door, but I didn't know it happened then.
Yeah.
But it really was opening a door to so much more of who I was that I had to face, that I had to admit, that I had to deal with, that I had to look at, that I had to take a long, hard look at and say, do you want to make a different decision?
Yeah.
And so she was a critical part in making me make different
And you didn't know
decisions.
you were opening that door to those spaces,
No,
right?
I did not.
You just thought it was a simple door knock on somebody who was a little...
I was going to help somebody else. That's what I was doing. And then as we would spend time together, we would talk about her life, which was mirrored mine so much more than I would have ever guessed. She was abused, sexually abused. She was raped. She had her baby in her own home. She was, she had a lot of stuff that had happened to her. All experiences I had as well, and I'm uncomfortable saying that. She was in a very, very unhealthy relationship. I was in an unhealthy relationship. She was very poor. I was actually very poor, but putting on a very rich life.
Did you tell her at the time that there was a lot, like where was the time that you were able to say, hey, this was similar to my own life? Like
actually so this will hit home a little harder. So when she started talking about how she had been suicidal, I admitted to her that I sat in my bed and I would think about it. And I sat in my tub for months. I would sit in my tub at night thinking, I could just drown here. And no one's going to notice. And she would admit that's how she felt in her home. Like I could live in this home, die in this home, and no one's ever going to notice. And so it was a moment for us where we both realized, okay. And before I came tonight, I actually pulled up. She used to love to do those bit strips. I don't know if you're that old or not.
No,
So it's bit strips, little cartoon character people. But there was one of her with her head upside down and my head is up. And it was like, it's okay, Erica, we got this. We can do this together. And I was like, I remember that being a moment where I was like, okay, I'll be there for her. She's going to be there for me.
That's
and
cool.
So that admitting to her the honesty is what was my changing moment.
Cool.
And just like opening up and sharing that with her.
That's cool. You know, what I love about that, Erica, is that you didn't expect that to be.
No.
It's funny because like people don't think about this question I ask, or they'll think about their life as they reflect on their own and think, well, I know exactly which one it was, or I knew when it was going to be. It was when I got married. It was when I had a kid. It was when I did this, when I went off to college or whatever. You can't literally orchestrate the life-changing moments.
No, you can't.
It's not how they come.
It's not. They just happen.
Yeah, they happen at a door knock.
If you let them. If you let them.
So, all right. So then why did you let that one take? Because look, you said 10 years ago. I know that you're only 22. But
let's add 30 to that.
I mean, I won't say that, but you didn't have to let it happen 10 years ago. You didn't have to let the life change moment happen. You could have walked away. You could have let it been a one and done and never opened up those other doors. Why did you choose to open up those other doors?
That's a good question.
I get a few of them every now and then.
Every now and then you get some. I think because I saw her struggle, and there was a part of me that thought if she gets rescued, she's that one sheep who's you're going after to help that one sheep, leaving the 99 to go for the one. If someone will rescue her, maybe someone will rescue me. So there was a part of me that correlated those two things simultaneously while trying to talk with her. And I would say that while she was here on this earth, I was great about it. Like I was making those changes, I was doing those things, and watching her life transform gave me a little bit of hope that okay, I can make better decisions and I can make different choices. And there was a day when our money is my trigger. Like that is the poor side of my story. All the other things, yes, they're traumatic. They are.
Yeah.
But when I think of money, that is drags me down fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the one that puts me in the tub.
Yeah.
Like it's the one that makes me panic. I'm not there now, but it's the one that would bring me down. And I remember not having food in my house. And she called me and she said, "Hey, you want to go to the food bank with me?" And so I had told her that I was, we just don't have a lot of groceries this week. And she came right out. She's like, "Do you have food?" I was like, "No, I don't."
Yeah.
She goes, "Want to go to the food bank with me?" And I was like, "What? I'm not going to the food
And
bank."
it's again one of those moments where you didn't have to be honest. You could have lied your butt off and be like, "Yeah, I'm good,"
Yeah, she's kind of like you though. She could see through that crap. So she knew.
Was awesome.
She knew I was lying. So I have a friend like that now too. Who knows when I'm doing that? So we went to the food bank and I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And the whole time that I'm visiting with her, there was days when we started doing Bible study. So I was allowed to sit in the living room now. I could come in the house. I could, now this woman, just the extent of it, even while this is happening, she has no kitchen floor. It's literally studs. She has no running water in her home. This is well into a year of our friendship. She has no running water. Could I have turned her in? Sure, but I'm not like that. I wanted to be able to help her. After a long period of time, a friend of ours who has also passed away, he came in and he put in new plumbing. We got a new floor in there. And I remember the day she turned that water faucet on and she just stared at that water and just stared at that water. Yeah. And her son said, "Mom," smacked her on the back of the head, "You gotta turn that off. You gotta pay that water bill. You can't do that."
You're wasting money.
She hadn't had it for so long.
Right.
She was so happy. And it did also bring me back to a reality of what simple things matter. And then watching her let me in more. There was a room in her home that the door had not been opened in for years. And it was the room she had been abused in. And she barricaded this door. And then finally she let me bring a group of people in to go in there and like clean out the whole room. And we sat on the porch, we cried, we sat on that porch, and she just watched it all go away. So I got to see her transform, but I just didn't know how easily it was happening to work on me at the same time.
So
it did.
When did you start working on some of those rooms or some of those pieces of you? Was it concurrent, like at the same time?
For her or me?
For you.
For me.
Because that was hers, and you could. It's easy, not easy. It's safer to watch somebody else do their own life change. It's harder to just not only speak about our own, but to allow our own to happen.
So fast forward 6 years or so, and she has passed away. And I gotta go back and say this. She became a huge believer. She ended up going to do ministry work somewhere else, and just watching her whole appearance change was so fascinating to me. And I held on to that. I didn't really make a lot of changes during that. I like saw the process. I didn't choose to do it. And she would use a word and she would say, "Treasure. You're such a treasure. You're such a treasure." And I didn't put much weight in that statement. But then later on, it came back and fast forward 6 years. And I am in a very unhealthy relationship. I'm going through a bunch of stuff and making decisions to come and go and leave my marriage, not leave my marriage. And on a lot of traumatic things that happened over a weekend. And on the day, like 2 days later, I was still in denial. I was still cooking breakfast, acting like everything was perfectly fine, realizing that my house looked great on the outside, but my inside looked like her floor. I had no running water. I had no emotional running water. I had no floor support. That's what my inside looked like. And when my husband at the time, he said, "I'm going to go look for treasures." And he was doing the thing where you look for stuff.
At the beach, and
everybody kept telling me, and she knew that my story where, she had encouraged me to leave an unhealthy thing a long time ago. And when I heard that, there was a little moment where I was like, I got to clean up some stuff. So I'm a treasure. And for whatever reason, that word snapped.
That's what it was.
A lot of memories that she had said to me, a lot of things we had talked about, a lot of stuff came flooding back. And I got up, walked out of my house. I had $10 to my name, and money is the trigger. And I had $10 to my name, and I walked out and decided I had to make better decisions. And I did. And I've been kerplunking along for like a year or two. And then I started putting into practice some therapy, going and talking to a counselor, opening some of those doors. But I didn't open them all to her. And it took time. It did. It took a lot of time.
And they're probably still not all open to the therapist, right?
They're open. we're just peeking in right now.
You're like, stand out here.
We're like, oh heck no, we ain't going in that one right now. But they're there, and I admit them.
I laugh because too, I know, Erica, that you have been talking to me about the therapy stuff, and you're like, yo, I don't like therapists. I don't trust them. I don't whatever. Like, it's all of that. And I think it's not just to beat you up from like past experiences, but just I understand that that's a lot. It's a lot to trust somebody in that space and in these sensitive spaces. What allowed you to finally start doing it, and why keep trusting a therapist like this?
So what allowed me to do it? Whew, I have to give my daughter credit for that one.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking, and even when it's funny because I wouldn't say, oh, I've been suicidal. I would never clone myself as that or use that term.
Mm-hmm.
But the thoughts hit me all the time. Was I almost making very stupid decisions? Yes. And I was always putting myself into a mindset of this would just be easier. And you know, there was a day when I called my daughter and I said, I just think this is just what I'm thinking. And she said, Mom, you need help. She said, you need help. And I had a gun in my house for protection, right? And she made my son come and get it that day. She said, no, you can't have it. And I said, you're way overreacting. What are you doing? You're way overreacting. And she said, no, I'm not. She said, I know you get down. I know you get like this. I know you get worried. I know you're worried about money. I know you're worried about these things. You're going to put yourself in the spot where you're going to make an unhealthy decision unless you get some healthy direction. She said, you need to talk to somebody. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll do that. But what really helped me was when I had left my home that day. So she encouraged it, definitely encouraged it. But what launched it for me was when I left my house that night, the first night that I left, I drove my car like so fast. I can't even say how fast because I might get a ticket for it now.
As one who knows from speeding tickets, there's an expiration. I might get a ticket now, but I promise you.
So much chaos had happened that night that I found myself in my car driving super fast on a really curvy road with the intent to just drive off a bridge. Like that was the thought. Did I think, oh, I'm suicidal, I've got issues? No. But my son stopped my car. His wife had called him and said, hey, your mom is like not acting right. He stopped my car. He's like, Mom, get in the car, turn around and go back up. And I was like, okay. You know, so I went. Couple days after that, I walked to a church that I'd never been to before. And I went in and I told the pastor, I said, it's either here or this bridge. I'm not sure what I'm thinking right now. And he said, well, all right, let's talk about that because I need to take that serious. And he did. He took it so serious right then. And then I was like, I have $10 to my name. I can't get therapy. I can't get help. And they said, we're going to take care of that. At least 3 sessions for you. And I was just like, okay, I think I need to do that. And so it was a decision. It was making a decision to make a difference and to change it. And I went and after I blurted out all of my blah, 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 blah about the crazy weekend I'd had. And I said, do you think I'm crazy? To the person. She goes, yeah.
Thank God she was honest because there's so many times that we sit here, we're like, what was that? Like, what are we supposed to do with that? So
she goes, yeah, that's crazy. That's messed up. That's a lot. And I'm like, am I going to be all right? She goes, I don't know. She said, you're going to have to work hard to deal with some of that crap. And I was just like, I don't think you're supposed to say that to me. And she was like, well, I mean, it's decision time. What do you want to do? And so I went to those 3 and I was like, well, that's it. I can't afford no more. Can't go anymore. And then my daughter was steady on me. Mom, have you found a therapist yet? Mom, have you talked to anybody yet? Mom, have you seen anybody yet? So I would kind of go, kind of not go, kind of go, kind of not go. But each time I went, it was with intention. I knew I was going with intention at some point. And it really did give me where you feel like this is life. And it at least helped you do this and take the next little step. And I called it kerplunking. That's what I kept calling it. I'm like, I'm not going to therapy. I'm kerplunking. And that was the word I would use. I refuse to call it therapy.
Eric, I've been doing this work 20-something years. I could promise you that nobody in my entire life has ever called this work that we do kerplunking.
It is.
That might be, hashtag kerplunking.
Let's do it.
I don't know if this is going to catch on.
Hashtag kerplunking.
That is wild. wild. But I just love, obviously, like, it speaks to my heart. I'm a therapist at heart. And so it speaks to my heart to hear people trying it. And even for myself, I'll tell you, like, knowing that I didn't want to talk to a therapist. I didn't want to trust somebody else or let somebody else in my mess. Like, it's not because there's not a realization that we don't have a mess. We know this is a crap storm, but we know it's ours and we don't want to let somebody else in. And it's not even fronting, it's just don't want to let somebody else in, and then start organizing it. And then you start kind of going with the what ifs. What if we could walk through some of this stuff and put it where it needs to? Not get rid of it, but put it where it needs to and see where it's taking me to. And so it's a journey.
It is,
And it's hard.
It's hard.
Some of the doors that you spoke about, and you're doing great, by the way. I want y'all to know. Listen, if you guys have questions, please send them in. We've got Erica Lane here, and we've got real conversations going on. So send in the questions. I'll tell you one question or one statement came from your people at United and True, and they said, "We love you, Erica." So
love you too.
That's awesome. So please send in the questions and comments that you guys have. Erica, as you look at some of the doors, both with the therapist and even with your friend, some of the doors are harder to open than others. Some of the ones you don't want to walk through, but you know you need to. How do you figure out which ones are the ones to handle, or which ones are the ones you're like, just I can't go there? Yeah. I mean, I know that money you said was the main trigger, but there's so many other ones that led to that part.
Yeah.
You know?
So my best friend now, she has a phrase which she'll say 80-20. 80-20. So sometimes I'll go in the door 80%, sometimes I'll go in the door 20%. It just depends on what else is kind of going on around it right now. But when you were talking about trusting, so I want to go back to that. You were talking about being able to trust a therapist or do something. That's part of the reason why I was willing to come to this. One, I trust you. I don't know why, since you are a Giants fan. I don't know.
I mean, don't trust my decision making.
Sometimes I make bad decisions. Off, but,
listen, that was
you
born.
You have a great reputation with people that I know and I respect. And so because of that, that gives you like a little bonus trust factor. And you've always been professional, polite to me, and I appreciate it.
No doubt. That just shows me that I have the capacity to do it. So
you do.
Y'all heard.
Rise up.
Rise up. Do it, man.
Rise up. Dang. But when I was thinking about doing this, and you said, I said, what story? What's so special about my life? I mean, I don't look at my life and go, wow, there's a lot I could share. There is a lot I could share. I just don't know how anybody else is going to think it's spectacular. People have said, sure, you should write a book. When I tell all these stories one-on-one, sure, you should write a book.
Rosa's there.
Don't know if I'm going to do it. Rosa says I should write a book. But I would say the thing for me with therapy was why I couldn't do it, why I didn't want to do it, is I've met so many people in therapy positions or just the realm of people I hang out with who've had nothing else in their life that they've experienced but a stubbed toe.
Right.
And they're not real to me.
Right.
And people like Brenda and I could relate because we were real. That is why I was willing to come to this. You're real. I felt like you wanted real. I don't know if whatever I have real is enough to offer to anybody or to bring to anybody, but I'm willing to be real. And I think that's important because the people that have just only ever stepped, I literally had a person that to me like, oh, I can't relate to your life at all. Only thing I've ever done is stub my toe. And I'm over here going, and you want me to share with you?
No,
and so therapy felt like that. And that's why I didn't. But I've been able to also appreciate now that not everyone has to have a bad experience to be a good person.
No.
So
or to want to walk
with you. Right. And so I have met people who haven't experienced the same things I've experienced. And we are just as close as people who have. So I had to learn that. That was the decision to learn that about other people. I didn't like it.
No, I mean, well, it's hard. It's weird because you come to a realization, Erica, where you figure out that you have impact. You figure out that your life matters. You figure out that, it may not even be to the ones that you thought it was to, but it matters and it impacts. I wanted to do this lounge, not just with you, but the ones that I have done because I wanted real everyday people that some have more influence and some impact than others, sure. But we all have an impact. And we all have a story to tell. If we're willing to kind of share our story and share our lives with someone, you're like, wow, somebody else is walking through exactly it. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be the couple that we have watching now or 10 years from now that somebody tunes into this and says, let me see what this is. That name looks familiar.
Someone Googling Erica. That kind of scary.
I mean, 100%. But when your name comes up in your story and they grabs them, knowing that your everyday story And I think that's the better part of it for this, is that they see somebody who's still walking through it, but willing to share their story and influence and impact somebody to go somewhere. I mean, I think that that there's a lot of scripture that could be cited, right? But you're called for a purpose, right? Like you were called for something. I don't know what that is. He hasn't told me, but it's figuring it out with you, and that you'll see that. And as it unfolds, you see that you impact others. So that's just the reality of what I wanted. I wanted real everyday people doing real everyday stuff. You know, I used to tell you'll appreciate this. When I was walking through my separation and divorce, I was a single dad and would never open my mail. So I had a stack of mail. It was horrible. But that included all my bills. And so they would cut off my water regularly. So I would leave here at work at night at like 8 o'clock at night, go home, go to the street, turn on my water so that I can do whatever I needed to, turn it back off so I didn't get charged. And then, and especially when my kids were coming, I'm like, yo, how do I walk through this life? And like, how do I do therapy with people? Like, I'm a real person. And I tell my clients this all the time, but I was turning my water on and off at the street. Like, I don't have it all together. I'm just trying to stay one step ahead. Like, I'm just trying to take one step. And I think that's the reality of what people like about myself, or even people that I bring on, is that we're just trying to pull it together as best we can. And we're going to do it together. We're kerplunking. Bro, I don't know if I can use kerplunking.
Kerplunk.
I keep picturing the game. I keep picturing The Price is Right. I've got The Price is Right ringing in my head right now. Like, yo, if y'all know Price is Right and kerplunking, man, like, I want somebody to throw like
a little thing goes down.
Yes.
Okay, well, that is kind of what my life looks like. Like, here you are here, Erica. You think you're gonna land in the $1 million section, and you kerplunk. I mean, that kind of is relatable, actually.
I'm gonna giggle.
That's a better visual than my footsteps.
It really is. In the next section, I'm gonna giggle about kerplunking. I'm gonna be like, bro,
yes.
you're kerplunking. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yes, when you have someone who's like struggling to get the words out and make a decision,
that
be
is
like,
so
do you know
funny.
what you're doing? It's a new term. Kerplunking.
It's a therapeutic term.
It's a therapeutic term. Yes, absolutely.
I can't with you. All right, so kerplunk with me. As you guys come and bring different questions and comments to us, kerplunk with me. There's parts of your story, parts of your life that you couldn't see how they could positively impact somebody. How do you kind of reconcile that? Because you have an impact, and God is creating this sort of masterpiece, right, with all this stuff. And there's parts that you still don't want to journey into. So how do you navigate that? How do you go back and reconcile some of those things so that your story can have an impact, a positive impact on people?
You do a lot of trusting, that's for sure.
Which is a hard thing to find.
You look at other people who are doing it, I think, and United True, I'll shout out to y'all for sure.
Yeah.
I went to a location not too long ago, and I was convinced I had to have on my United True shirt when I did it, because I have changed so much. Like, I knew I have changed in the last 4 years dramatically.
Yeah.
And I remember reading her book and just thinking, wow, I really do need to look in that mirror differently.
Yeah.
Like, I do. And so being able to do that was watching other people who are taking those steps and leaps of faith. I work with a group on Tuesday nights where I see people who are in a crisis situation, and they're making decisions to change their life. And that encourages me to keep trying to open some things, even though some of those are hard for them. They're in tough spots.
Hold on, let me go back to the book real quick. So this is our homegirl Sandra Coates. So shout out to Sandra. She's got a book that's available to her now. But wait, I don't have the birthday. Wait, she's got the same birthday.
Same birthday.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
That is funny. I never knew that. I don't get to know Sandra. When you read books like that, do you think to yourself, like, wow, somebody else has a story like mine? Or do you have somebody else has a story that I can relate to? Or like,
no, I read books like that and think more along the lines of, wow, she was willing to write it. Wow.
Willing to
share it. Wow. She believes everything in this book. And the first time I read her book, I was like, yeah, this is good writing. I like it. Right. I love that page. Good phrase. Excellent. And emotionally, was not attached. So I read it again, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You have to let it kind of sink in. And I do that with a lot of things. Like those doors you were saying, which doors you go and which doors you don't. I'll see them. I'll know which door's trying to open up. I know which conversation's maybe with the person that's trying. And sometimes I'm like, well, that's a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
And we don't really dig in. And then the next time I see him, like, I
Here it
really
comes.
should have
Yep.
shared X, Y, and Z with you, or this, and that.
I literally, in the middle of conversations, I've looked up, I'm like, really, dude?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
we're doing this now? And they're like, who are you talking to? I'm like, this ain't got nothing to do with you. Like,
Yeah.
hold on, bro. Really? Like we will have that, me and
Yeah.
God will have that conversation. You're like, why are you choosing to open this now?
So I wasn't going to share the story, but I'm going to, because I had that moment. So, and everyone that knows me will know I would take the story. So it was on my son's 18th birthday, and a week before he got shot in a hunting accident, he said, I had said, they're talking about like buckshot or whatever, birdshot going near him, and I made the phrase, if you all come into my house and tell me you shot my child, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill the person who's stupid enough to come in the house and tell me. Oh, and I meant it 100%. The words were real.
Okay, you might actually get arrested for this. So I'm just saying.
I meant the words coming out of my mouth.
Oh,
I didn't know that a week later that my son was going to get shot on his 18th birthday.
Oh,
and so as he's coming in the house and all this trauma's on the floor, and I hear the person on 911 is telling me, go outside, the officer's out there. And I hear at the same time someone else saying the shooter's outside. And so I ran outside and I ran up to the shooter and I literally grabbed his face and pulled it to my face. And I had one of those conversations. And it was in that moment that I'm not kidding. It was like, God was like, now is when I would like you to have grace and mercy.
Yeah.
And I'm holding his face, looking up, going, now's not really a good time.
Yeah.
This is not a good moment for us. And I'm still, he thinks I'm crazy because I'm audibly talking to God up here. And I'm like, no, you heard what I said last week. I'm going to kill him. And it was just like, God was like, now is when I want you to show grace and mercy like I've shown you. And so I'm holding his cheeks and I'm like, I'm going to hug you because grace and mercy was given to me. And I'm now going to hug you. And I hugged him. The police officer comes up. He goes, where's he shot? Where's he shot? I'm like, oh, no, this is the shooter, officer. Like, we're now best friends. And so the officer's like, step away from the shooter, please. So what's really sad about that story is, so as my son's in the hospital and the trauma of all that for 9 days, and it was a pivotal point that probably broke my marriage. Like it wasn't great, but it probably finished it off what we had. Because there was so much anger, because at that, God didn't leave it with just, will you hug him and not kill him? He wanted me to tend to him.
Right.
Go get him water. Take care of him. Go see if he needs his family called. My son is bleeding out on the couch, and I'm over here helping the shooter. Yeah. Well, there was a lot of bitterness that came in because I paid more attention to the shooter than I did my son. And that was bitterness creeps in. It creeps in, and when it creeps in, it creeps in. And cost me about 6 months of communication in my marriage.
But but it's also something that nobody could understand. You got to be able to know.
You can't argue with God.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Yeah, it wasn't, and I'll tell you, and you'll people who know, right? Like it wasn't my choice.
Right.
Trust me, if it was left to my own devices, like
I'd have killed him.
I don't know exactly what happened. And I'd have told you everything, right? Like that's the divine sort of moments, I think, Erica, where you're like, okay, all right, you're doing something.
Yeah.
And I think that's often the conversation too. If I'm real, I know I have that conversation. I know you're doing something. I don't know exactly what you're doing, but you're doing something. Right.
I believe that God was in it in that moment 100%. And then when it got tough was when it got to the money. When you got the $350,000 worth of medical bills and you got the stuff, and I'm asking my friends to pray for my son's healing and pray for me to still feel the same way about the shooter as I did the day after. I'm not feeling that way right now. And it was a constant go back to that feeling, go back to that same grace and mercy, go back to that same grace and mercy. And when he filed bankruptcy, again, money was my trigger. It was just awful. I mean, it was. And I kept having to go back to grace and mercy, grace and mercy, grace and mercy. And we would say that in the hospital room a lot. Like his friends would come in and be like, man, who do you want me to F up this and beat him up and kick his, all these things. Sorry, Sandra, if you're listening. I said,
Sandra, why should you apologize? There's so many other people to apologize to. But yes, Sandra,
sorry,
just you.
Well, I said I wouldn't use it either.
I didn't say it first. I just watched.
I did it. But in those moments in the hospital room, all these people were saying that. I kick people out. Yeah. I mean, I told them, get out. Yeah. Unless you're bringing grace and mercy in this room, we're not having it. Yeah. But I was convinced that his healing, his recovery, all of it was going to be bound up in that somehow. Wow. And so, even though it broke a lot of other things, he healed and that part of me got stronger.
The wildest things to watch as you go through your life, and I know you'll reflect on so many parts, is that some parts are breaking, other parts are healing, right? And it's this weird balance of like, this is torn apart and yet this is growing. How is that even possible, right? And it's understanding that, again, that wasn't by our orchestrating. Like, we wouldn't have chosen it. So look, we still got a little bit of time, and I've got plenty of questions. So I just want people to ask more questions. We're on Life Change Lounge, and you're doing a great job. But you told me about, I'm going to make a joke about this, because she tells me before we start, she's like, I have these paralyzed vocal cords.
I do.
I'm like, I don't know what the heck that even means. I've never heard of that. But girl, you're doing pretty good talking. So I just want you to know, paralyzed or not, I wish I had that type.
Sometimes if they stick together, then I was going to this like wheezing thing, and I can't breathe for like a minute.
That would be so awesome. No,
I know people that have seen it. It's not that fun, actually.
I'm sure. Does it really sound like fun? It's
It's
just
not that fun.
no, but so you keep referring back to this one main trigger of money, right?
Yeah.
How do you, not to ask your money
Sure.
questions now, but how do you manage the day-to-day stress or the day-to-day trigger that is money? Because you said, like, a lot of your roads, and you've had some crazy roads,
I've had crazy.
and they all seem to point to money still for you. Like, why is that the thing, and what do you do to manage that every day? Not to manage your money every day, but to manage your head from spiraling from that.
So my friend that I have now, she's really good about reminding me I have $3. So we have a joke. She'll be like, "What do you want to go do?" I went, "I got $3. That's it. I got $3. In my will, I have left her $3.
That's
and in her will, she has left me $3 because
awesome.
at some point, I just, I'm like, as long as I have $3, I'm gonna be okay. I don't know when that happened, but probably when we started hanging out and I had $3. I guess I don't know.
Wow.
But no, money's a trigger. It has always been a trigger. I definitely didn't have it growing up. I remember going to bed with roaches crawling in my hair at night and thinking, I wish we were rich. I wish we had more money. I wish we didn't live in the projects. I wish we didn't live here. I just remember seeing other people who had it. My mom did the best she could with what she had. And then, as you kind of move, I moved to live with my grandma, and it was like, oh, this is great, man. I'm like a millionaire right now. But we weren't, we were what we call $10 millionaires. We had $10 and we acted like we had $1 million. I had 10 with my grandma. And, but no, it controlled me. Like it really did. Money controlled me a lot. When I moved out of my house and I had the $10, I panicked. I made crazy decisions, just trying to figure out how to it definitely puts me on a rocky, I'm unstable. Like I feel like I worked so hard to get so much. And in that moment, all of it was gone. And then on top of it, because I was trying to have some grace and mercy in the relationship side of things, and I was the one who left, I also walked away from all the equity in my home,
everything,
all the debt I acquired. So on top of just having $10, I had taken on all the debt because the other person wouldn't. And so it was like this massive weight, massive. And I remember taking my kids to Taco Bell. It's little things just kept adding up for money for me. I remember going to Taco Bell one time with Brenda and and my kids, and I had $5 in rolled pennies. That's it. That's all I had. We were all going to eat at Taco Bell for this $5. And when I got up there, the woman said, "We have to weigh them." And I'm like, I worked at a bank for like 9 years. Like I know how to count pennies. And she goes, "Well, we have to weigh them, ma'am." And I said, "Okay." So she puts them on the little machine. It's $1. It's a penny short. And I'm like, "Okay." And I said, "Can you check the other ones?" She said, "They're all a penny short." I said, "Well, that seems a little off to me." And I said, "Count them." And Brenda turned around. She's like, "Oh, good Lord. I'm not even standing for this. She's going to make a scene. I know it." And both my kids are like, "Oh, Mom, please don't do it." And so I did make a scene in that Taco Bell. I'm not proud of. I haven't
Did
been
you
back.
get your food?
I did. We ate the little $3 combo meal where you get the little burrito thing. You cut it in half. One of us got a drink. Two of us got burritos, and the other one of us split up the little cinnamon twist. We ate for $5. So I learned how to make money stretch. I did. But I'd go a long time before I'd go ask for help. Like I would. Even after meeting Brenda, I still didn't want to go to that food bank. I still didn't want to go up there. I still struggle. My friend now, she'll say, "Erica, you just have to tell me you have a need." And I'm like, okay.
But how do you keep from stressing about money now? I mean, it's always a stressor per
Yeah.
se, but how do you keep it
Um,
from overwhelming you?
Well, luckily, I was able to do Dave Ramsey, and I'm gonna throw
Please
him out
put you.
there.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
mind
throw
at
him
all.
out there. So I went to a Dave Ramsey class at our church, and I thought they were crazy. when
Which
they
which
said
class is it? Give the shout out.
What is it called? Dave Ramsey, Financial Peace. I had to think
Financial
about
Peace
it. Like, what's it called?
University, yep.
Financial Peace.
Yeah,
So
shout out to Dave. If you're watching it, man, you might want to holler at us.
Yes. Yeah. Hey, Dave. I'm on step 2.
There you go.
On step 2. No, but I remember when they said baby step 1 was save $1,000. I was like,
Oh yeah.
this is insanity.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah.
I can't even pay my rent.
I can remember doing that and saying, I've never looked at $1,000 stacked at one time. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the hard part for me, truthfully, is that I would, and it's funny, I guess because I didn't have money, I'll give it away just as fast as I get it.
Yeah.
And that's a bad thing sometimes.
Yeah.
And you're giving it away to feel better about yourself versus
Yeah.
you're really led to give it away.
Yeah.
And I was bad about doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, really bad. And so anyway, I did my Dave Ramsey. I got to my $1,000. I got in the thing and I started eating it dead. And I mean, life changed. This wouldn't be what I would say about, but
No doubt.
I went from $35,000 debt. I'm down to 12 right now in 4
Wow.
years. So I'm just nipping away at it.
Yeah.
Once kerplunking. I am
Kerplunking your way
kerplunking.
through that.
I'm
That I can see
kerplunking.
kerplunking. That
That is
I get that more for kerplunking than I do therapy. So I'm just gonna say.
Okay, if we could just do the little. That's
Tell
called
me,
bunko. Isn't that bunko? I don't know. I gotta look that up on that Price is Right thing. I'm gonna have to check you on that one. Planko.
Planko.
It's planko, not
Planko.
kerplunking.
I thought it was kerplunking.
Kerplunking is the game where you put the marbles in there.
And
You got all
you
these
just pull
little
the straws
sticks, you
out.
gotta pull. That's my life. That is a good reflection too. I like the other one.
I like
better.
the Plinko.
Planko better. I like that one too. Yeah, but the marbles all
That's
just
so
kind of fall
funny. I
loose.
forgot about the marbles.
Yeah, that's their kerplunking game.
Now
Sorry, I
we're
didn't
just
mean to correct.
now we're just showing our age
Yeah,
even
I'm
more.
old.
There's some
I
young
said
people that are like,
52.
what are
I'm
they
gonna own
talking
it.
about? You know?
I'm gonna own it.
That's funny. So the Dave Ramsey course and being able to stick to it, and I think that when you see progress and you see growth in it, you're like, okay, it's not that it gives you any more peace. Like it's called
it does
financial
give you
peace,
peace.
but it gives you peace in knowing that you're making progress. Or
It does give you peace. When I had to get 2 tires not too long ago, and I remember one of the classes it said you were 1 flat tire away from being bankrupt.
yeah,
And I was like, he's so right. Like
Yeah.
it's so true. Like if my tire went out, I don't have $60 to get a new tire. And now I hear they're like 120. So
yeah,
but I got that safety net in there
good,
and I haven't touched it.
good.
And you know what? I mean, and then you got little blessings that come along the way. My friend was washing my car. She stole my car one day. I didn't know why. She stole my car, and I came home and I had new front tires.
Wow.
I was like, what happened? She said, I went out there to wash your car to surprise you, and they were flat. So I put them on there. I was like, I cried my eyes. I'm like, I can't pay you back. And she's like, did I ask? And
Right.
so God has put lots of those little
Yeah.
things along the way
Yeah.
for doing it. So the more, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, do I trust God with money and my finances and will I be okay? Absolutely would have said no.
Yeah.
Today, you can take it all.
Absolutely.
As long as I have $3, I'm good. $3 is all I need.
That's so funny. Wow, good for you. It's interesting to me because there's so much that speaks to Erica, like finances being security. Like
yes.
I hear so many moments through your life, through your story, that were so insecure, so unstable, and yet money was the security, the stability part of it.
Yeah.
And you're so right because, and I'll tell you, like in the wise, I like to tell people in the wise words of the prophet, Notorious B.I.G., more money, more problems, right? Like you can't, you can't find security and stability in money.
Yeah.
You can't find it there, and yet that's what it pointed to. And you're finding that there's security even without the sort of strong, financial safety net or whatever. And you're working on it, you're building it, but you've been strong this whole time.
Yeah.
As you've been growing, you've been strong this whole time. And I think that says a lot about you.
You got a good rock I stand on. That's for sure. I got a good rock.
I think that's a cool part of the story too, because it's your willingness. A lot of people go through life and face different issues and aren't willing to stand on a rock like that. Yeah. They blame the rock for causing the issues more than they're standing on the rock.
That's true.
So what keeps you so faithful?
I don't know. I can't imagine not having it now. When I went forward to say I was making this decision and to accept Christ in my heart, when I went forward that day, I thought I never want to have to make that walk again. And I think I was more faithful. I think my faith is strong just because I never want to have to get to that point where I have to crawl back to that cross. I want to be able to go to the cross. I want to crawl to the cross. And that first time was crawling. It was like hands and knees, like, and now I want to be able to go to it more confidently than I used to be able to do. I think faith builds on faith. But it's a core thing. That song, I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Yeah.
So I laugh sometimes when I sing that song because I love that silly song. But those days in the tub when I was worried about the money and I'm having those thoughts, if I stop for a minute and just stop and think, do I really want to do what I'm thinking about doing?
Yeah.
I would come back to no, and I would come back to what is the real truth of the situation. God still has me. But it took me I'd be like, the truth is I can't pay my bills. The truth is I can't do this. The truth is I can't do that. The truth is I'm still alive. The truth is I'm still loved. The truth is, and I had to come back to those truths, what I would call my core, and I called that song says down in my heart. Most people sing, I got the joy, and they're focused on the joy. I was always focused on the down. I had to dig down to find that joy sometimes. And in our Bible study class we were doing the other night, I said, I do have this ability to find joy no matter what. A lot of my friends and therapists would say it's denial. It's true. They would say it's denial. But there is something about that rock, that core of what really makes me who I am and makes me who I will be, that I find that joy in, that peace in. And without it, I would be off a bridge somewhere probably.
And I think that's the reality of it, is that left to my own devices, I know what I would have chose. I know how I would have done it. And it's not necessarily to fix it, but it's, would have made it a lot messier. Let's just say that. So I think that's a cool thing that radiates from you, is also that faith component that says, look, I don't know exactly where it's going, but I got something there. He's doing something with it. Sidewalk Prophets has a song called Keep Making Me, right? Making Me, right? And he just keeps making you, keeps molding you and molding you and molding you and molding you into something. And you're like, can you stop molding and just finally get there already, right? But I think it's in the process. I think the beauty is in the process the whole time. So that's kind of cool. Wow. I love it. So look, we've got a few minutes left, and I want to save time for the last question. She asked me, she says, an hour's a long time to talk. You realize this is flown by, right?
Oh, yeah. I was kind of joking because I could talk all day probably.
No, because you got paralyzed vocal cords.
My friends would say, she doesn't shut up.
I want to save time for shout outs, but I also want to save time for the second question, though, too, because I want to hear what that looks like now. Oftentimes when I work with my clients, I work mainly in recovery, and what I tell my clients is, don't spend so much time on where you were. I know where you were. We all know kind of what that life led to here, but spend more time on where am I now and where am I going. And so we spend a lot of time oftentimes reflecting back on all the bad, all the negative, all the things. I know that you're strong. I wouldn't have asked you to be here if you weren't. So what now, right? And so to me, the question is this, right? To Erica Lane, positive life change means what?
Decision making.
She thought about this question.
No, I have thought about this question. Like, if I really had to say, what does it mean? It means making a decision every day to choose to live to your fullest. I'll go church for a second.
Say it. This is your platform, girl.
If you got like a line of your life is here where you're at, you have to make a decision to get on a different path. That path has to lead to God. That's the perfect path. Through that path, you're going to make all these little funky things, but every time you got to make a decision, you come back. And that every time you come back to that little line, that perfect path for you, that's life changing. Every one of those is a life changing moment. So I do think it's decision making. You want something different, you have to decide to do it different. You want something new, you have to decide you want something new. You want to look different, decide to do something about it. Go to that exercise class you were talking about earlier. Hang from the ropes if you need to. You want to make a difference, decide to come to a class like this or come to a thing and sit in. You want to do something with your money, decide to not go out to eat 3 times a week. And I do think it's decision making, and it's that simple. It can be, you can make it as big as you want it, but ultimately you have to decide something.
Comes up with that choice,
to make a decision of, are you going to change or not?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I don't.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think it's leaning towards a place where we can decide more and more to make that right choice, to make the healthier choice for ourselves, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that we're constantly faced with choices, with the decision making, right? And there's so many people, Erica, that want the choices to be made for them.
Right.
There's so many people
me
who've
too.
been, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, you go through life and you're like, man, I don't want to. I don't want to have to choose this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's true. And I think I think that's the part about you're on one path. You got to get on the path that leads to God, though, because if you're over here doing it all on your own, you don't have enough strength to do it. You're never going to choose well. You might choose well from time to time, but it has no purpose, no direction. If you don't choose God first, or I am going to say that, if you don't have that, you can't have that rock.
Yeah.
You can't have that stability. Any stability is all going to stay unstable all the time.
Yeah.
Or you're going to be choosing your own strength, and you already see that you can screw it up.
Yeah.
I mean, if I chose my own decisions, I'm going to screw it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to choose what's easy. I'm going to choose the easy route.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would prefer that.
Well, that's the other part too. I think that that's interesting. You said I'm going to choose the easy route because nothing in your life has seemed easy.
That is true.
Right? Like, so I would have chose, if you looked at every one of those moments, every one of those doors that you and Brenda were talking about, you're like, I would have never choose that. I definitely would choose that. I would have chose that. I would have chose this.
So true.
But it made you, it gave you the rock, if you will, gave you the foundation to make the hard choices and the hard decisions that you needed to make for you to grow you, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's important too, even choosing your friends, even the decision who your friends are going to be and who you're going to let in, who you're not going to let in. I think that matters. And so making a decision to have influential people in your life is probably important. Yeah. And that's one I wouldn't have chosen probably because I thought I could just kind of do it on my own. I like to just do my thing. And that network of community that you have to support you through that process and helping you, like, how do I even know what is a healthy choice?
Yeah.
Oh, go to therapy. You might have some options. Yeah. Something to think about.
I love it.
You know, go to a friend who's been through it. Maybe they've got some insight.
Yeah.
You know,
so
I used to not be willing. I
want to know those shout outs then. Who are this is the shout out section of this time where you get to be like, yo, shout outs to, because these are the folks that got us to these life change moments and continue to carry us through. Yeah. So who is that network?
Shout out Pat Storminger. She was there when I first went forward during a revival. So shout out to her for walking on up there with me. So shout out to my friend Jan, who is always just on top of things with my faith walk and challenging me. Shout out to Kayla with my $3. And that's the whole world to me. She goes, that's my whole world, so you're my whole world.
Kayla, you know you're in the will for $3. I just want you to know, man.
And shout out to Sandra, United in Truth. Shout out to my church, Real Life, which is a great church.
Big up to Real Life.
Shout out to my counselor, whose name will remain anonymous.
See, I was trying to get the counselor some business, you know.
But I put you in there. And certainly shout out to my kids. Those are my little stones beside my rock.
Okay. Did you tell them you were coming to do this?
I told my daughter actually, and she says, "Oh, Mom, how's that gonna be?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." She goes, "Yeah. When you start off with, gangster has done this and had that done and had these things done, and this has happened to me. And my child had brain surgery, my son got shot, and he got struck by lightning, and a car caught over." She said, "They're going to be like, do you need more therapy?" And those were her words. So shout out to my daughter for putting me into the position where I was willing to go to therapy. Shout out to Dave Ramsey, because I'm down to $12,000 debt. Shout out to anybody that wants to pay that off. Also, you cannot receive a blessing with your hands closed.
Hey, email Life Change Institute at Gmail.
Shout out to my daughter for teaching me that.
That's awesome.
No, for real. There's a lot of people, and I'll throw a shout out there to Crisis Pregnancy Center too, because when I did their one class called Forgiven and Set Free, that was crucial to even beginning to understand forgiveness. And if you can't forgive yourself and understand it, that foundation kind of came from there. Even though Jesus did the work, CPC kind of helped me understand it. So I got to give them some shout out for that too.
That's really, really cool.
Shout out to you for admitting that your Giants didn't do so well against my Cowboys.
Listen, we're just going through a rough season, right? This is a rebuilding year. You said that for the last couple. I want to give you credit. First of all, time flies when you're having fun. And I love doing lounges like this when it's just a natural, cool conversation. I would love to, and I really pray that your kids, that your community, your group of women that are holding you up and all that see this, and that they're proud of you. I hope that your daughter can see, your son can see the strength. As you share a story, and it's not even the details of the grittiness, it's just sharing a story and seeing their mom like, yo, that's my mom right there. Like, that's my girl right there. Like, that's beautiful. I think there's a beauty in the strength of still walking through it and still going somewhere. There's a purpose to it. So I pray your kids see that. I pray that your people see that, and that all the people you shouted out and then some. And the people that are going to watch this in the future can see a strength that sits there and says, yo, I'm still walking and I'm still on the path. Kerplunking along. We ain't walking, we kerplunking.
Kerplunking. That's it.
Every time I see you walk by, but is that mean if I say like kerplunk, you're gonna look around and be like, yo, who's saying that?
I had a different title for a book in mind, but it might be Kerplunk now.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Well, that is our time here for Life Change Lounge. And I personally want to thank you, Erica, for sharing your life with me and with us. I thank you for continuing the life change journey. And I thank you for just being solid. Just being as solid as you are. For you guys out there, man, as long as you guys are watching, man, send in questions later to lifechangeinstitute@gmail.com.